Coming up on this episode of Hashtag The Social Hour, hashtag Denise Howell is our hashtag guest, hashtag awesome guest, hashtag we're also going to talk about hashtag, wait, too many hashtags, hashtag Red or Fad, hashtag Twitter, hashtag Kanye, and more.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Audio bandwidth provided by the new Winamp for Android, featuring wireless sync and one-click iTunes import. Now with free daily music downloads and full-length CD listening parties. Download it for free at winamp.com/Android. Bandwidth for the Social Hour is brought to you by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is The Social Hour with Sarah Lane and Amber MacArthur, episode 130, recorded Friday, September 27th, 2013. This episode of The Social Hour is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free trial and 20% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code SOCIALHOUR9. And by Social Media Solutions from SAP. If you're a social media manager at a large enterprise, gain insight and engage in social media with Social Media Solutions from SAP to improve your customer service and support experience. Take a guided tour at sap.com/twit. Hello, everybody. Thanks again for joining us on another fun-filled episode of The Social Hour, episode 130 from San Francisco, California. I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And Sarah, you are not in the Twit studio, but instead you're at your home.
That's right. I know. I decided to throw you guys a curveball. The show, of course, would go on, even though I'm at my home studio. Sometimes I'm here for episodes of Tech News Today. But the reason I have a good one is because I was home waiting for my gold iPhone 5S to arrive, which it did, as suspected, right in the middle of the day. So it all worked out. And I haven't had much time to play with it besides just putting my old SIM into the new phone. But so far, Amber, I am really happy with it now that it's been 45 minutes or so.
It's kind of funny because you probably have the only job of anyone in the United States where it's a legitimate reason to stay home from work. I'm waiting for my iPhone 5S.
Exactly. Yeah. And if I would have been smarter, which is, well, anyway, I would have just had it shipped to the Twit studio where someone's bound to always be there because I missed the shipment yesterday. I was so upset about it. And so anyway, I was not going to start my weekend without this in my hot little hand. Wouldn't do it. But anyway, we are here. It's another episode of The Social Hour. And this is actually a great one because not only do we have a guest, but we have a Twit host guest. It's Denise Howell, the host of This Week in Law. Hello, Denise.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Amber. Great to be here.
It's so nice to have you here. Sarah and I were saying last week on the show, we often get legal questions. People tweet at us or we come across stories and we need legal input. And we're thinking, of course, it would make perfect sense to have you on the show. So thanks for being here. And there already are a number of questions that have come in, Facebook comments as well as tweets.
Great. Excited to hear them.
Okay. Go ahead, Sarah.
Amber. Oh, the Skype game. Okay, so I just wanted to ask Denise, just off the bat, because This Week in Law records on Fridays right before the social hour. So for the most part, I get a good sense of what you and your team cover each week. And I noticed that a lot of what you cover happens to be on social media. Do you think that that is an increasing issue just because there are so many rules that just have yet to be made about how people act online?
Yeah, it's that and the fact that social media is no longer just this sort of game that people do on their free time. It's very institutional, it's very entrenched, and it's a part of the fabric of our society now. And so it's not just, messing around on Twitter and joking around with your friends. It's what people do for their profession, in aid of their professional life, as a very serious part of business marketing efforts, and all of the considerations that social media raises get complicated.
I think especially because it is relatively new for most people. So it's not as though you learned what to do and what not to do in school. You have to kind of learn on your own, and no one really has a teacher or a guide. That's what I think is so great about your show, because I always tune in before the social hour just to get a sense of what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. And it doesn't just apply to people on social media, but also content creators, people creating YouTube videos, what you can and can't use. We have one question from Robert Woolridge on Facebook, who says, what's the best way to remove comments if you don't have access to them, like a message board or Google search?
Yeah, that's a toughie. If it's not a site that you are administering, what you need to start with is, well, why do you want that comment removed? You know, there are only certain circumstances where you could have a comment removed. And, you know, if it is a legal reason for wanting it removed, if it's defamation against you, if it's infringing your copyright or trademarks or other intellectual property, you kind of have to go through that checklist and figure out, okay, well, what's my basis? You know, not just that they said something I don't like. So once you figure out if you have, you know, a good legal basis for it, you're going to want to get in touch with two parties. The person who made the comment, now you may not have access to that information right off the bat, and the person administering the site. So if it's Facebook or Google or what have you, and you have a specific complaint about the comment, you should get in touch through whatever channels they provide you for doing that. State your reason for wanting the comment removed. And, you know, if you can, now I'm not saying that this is going to get you anywhere, but you may ask for contact information for the person who made the comment so that you can get in touch directly with them and see if they will withdraw it. If you actually have a legal claim against this person, the way you would pursue that is to get in touch with them off the bat. And, you know, you obviously would need to have their contact information if you're going to actually try and pursue legal action against them.
There's a question that we get a lot of, and in fact, we try to tackle some of these stories on a case-by-case basis. And this is Ayaz on Twitter, not Ayaz Akhtar, a different Ayaz, but I don't think there's any relation, asks, if tweets are made from a personal account and on your own time, can an employer legally try to stop you? I mean, this, of course, it doesn't have to be Twitter, really, but it's like, if somehow your persona is connected to where you work, where's that line between what you can say and do and what you're liable for?
Well, this goes right to your question at the top of the show, Sarah. Why are we talking so much about social media and legal issues related to social media? And one of the reasons is there is such a blurry line between what people do in their professional lives and what they do in their personal lives, and how it's really getting harder and harder to draw the distinction between the two. If you do something in your personal life, it's bound to affect you professionally if you're doing it in such a way that there's a permanent online record of your activities, and vice versa. So the question is a good one, and it varies by jurisdiction. And it also varies by what kind of employment relationship that you are in. There are certain responsibilities that employers have to employees if they are in an employment contractual arrangement with them. Otherwise, what is often the case is you're something called an at-will employee, which means you can be, you know, aside from the things that are protected by law, you can't be discriminated against because of your race or gender or religion, for example. Aside from those very strong protections that are in place, you can be fired for just about anything else your employer finds objectionable. So if you've done something online that the employer just doesn't like, if you're an at-will employee, you may find yourself in a situation where you don't have any basis for complaining if you get fired. So, you know, while there are complicated legal questions involved in every termination from somebody's job, just about, you know, you have to bear in mind that everything you say online can have ramifications from an employment standpoint. and be really careful, because oftentimes you can be fired for the littlest things. And one mistake that people often make is they think, oh, I can go off and do whatever I want on my own time because the First Amendment protects my online free speech. And they have a real sort of vague and overbroad idea of what the First Amendment protects. The First Amendment only applies really to government entities and restricts their actions. So if you're someone who works for a state or federal government, you may find yourself having stronger First Amendment protections in the employment setting than anybody else does. If you're working for a private employer and you're looking for the First Amendment to bail you out if you say something online, you're probably going to have a rude awakening coming if you've said something that ticks your employer off.
That is super helpful advice. And although this isn't a question from one of our viewers, I think it leads into a comment that you gave me once for an article I was writing for Fast Company about whether or not people should put their company names in their Twitter profiles and associate those names in their bios and Facebook profiles and really mention the company at all. Could you just comment on that? Because I know we get that question as well.
Yeah, I mean, as a matter, you're going to have to talk with your company about the role of social media in your job. And, you know, there are going to be instances where perhaps the company wants you to be affiliating their name and brand, et cetera, with your online activities. And this is something you're going to have a dialogue and an understanding about, and make sure everybody's on the same page, and that you understand that if you part ways with the company, you're not going to be tweeting as gal reporter from CNN anymore. You know, I mean, there are definite things that you need to bear in mind in having an online presence, and the personal corporate distinction is one of them. So, you know, I personally think that it's a better idea to try and keep your brand separate from your employer's brand. It's that if that's something your employer has a real problem with, you're going to have to work with them on that and figure out a way that you can do what they want you to do in a way that is acceptable to you. Vice versa, too. There are some instances where your employer may not want you associating their brand with anything that you do online. So it's just, you know, rather than let people's toes get stepped on and misunderstandings develop, it's better to address on the front end, hey, I have this really active online presence. You know, when you're first starting a job, how should we handle that? And go from there.
Amber, should we go to Luke's question from Twitter?
Yeah, let's do this one.
Luke says, I've got a question for Denise. Are admins legally responsible for comments made by others on their Facebook pages? I guess this would really apply to if you're in some sort of social media or community manager control over, you know, anything that's representing a brand, and somebody says something and you don't get rid of it in a timely fashion, or for whatever reason don't see it, how liable are you as an individual or as a representative of a company?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I was wondering what they meant by admins too, because I mean, you could envision a situation where someone comes along and makes, you know, a defamatory comment about one of your other friends on your Facebook page, and you would think, gee, you know, might I have any personal responsibility for that if I go ahead and let that comment stay there? And of course, there would be Facebook's responsibility too that would come in question. There is a law in the United States that is called the Communications Decency Act, and it has a provision, Section 230 of that act, that insulates online service providers from legal wrongs done by third parties on their site. And it specifically relates to that kind of situation where there are a couple of things carved out. Federal crimes are carved out and IP infringements are carved out. But any other kinds of illegal activity, the administrative portion of the website is generally shielded from liability. So if you're just an extension of the online service providers administration arm, I think you would be covered there. If you are, now it gets complicated if you're, as you were saying, Sarah, representing, say, the brand on a Facebook page, a company that has a Facebook page, and you're the administrator interacting with your customers there. I would certainly pay attention to and be well in touch with the legal department, because although there are protections under Section 230, they are not absolute. And when you have a very active involvement in the discussion, when you're not just hosting other people's comments in sort of a passive way, when you're pruning and picking and choosing and being actively involved editorial wise, you might find yourself placed out of those protections of Section 230. So that's something to pay close attention to. And I guess the short answer is that you can become legally responsible for comments made by others, depending on the level of your involvement in the discussion.
Maybe we have time for just one more Twitter question. And this one is from Sean. It's a good one. If you tweet or email or conduct other business on your personal phone, can your employer confiscate it? The phone. Yeah, the phone.
This is a really interesting issue that comes up a lot with the sort of bring your own technology initiatives that companies have in place now, since people were doing it anyway. People would rather use their iPhone than their BlackBerry or whatever, and were conducting all kinds of business on their phones outside the IT infrastructure of their company. Companies began saying, well, okay, we're going to let you bring your own technology. It's going to save us some money anyway, but you have to comply with various requirements that we're going to put in place, be that, security or software or whatever it is the company wants to have as a safeguard to having their employees use their own stuff. So the answer to this question could depend on what sort of agreement you entered into with your employer when you decided and they decided that you could be using your own technology for work. Now, if nothing that formal ever happened and you just happened to, have your own phone that you've been using not just for personal business, but for professional business, then I think you get into a gray area here. I mean, I think it would be difficult for an employer who had not paid for your equipment to be able to actually physically confiscate it. But if they get into a dispute with you, I could certainly envision them serving discovery on you that would require you to turn over phone records or data that's on the phone that relates to activities that you were engaged in or they say you were engaged in. So although it would be hard for them to just pluck it away from you, I think they could, essentially get at whatever information there that they wanted.
It all sounds very scary.
This is actually, I hate to say, Denise, come join us. Let's just barrage you with a bunch of user help questions. But yeah. I think it's really eye-opening for all of us because, again, there's bad information, there's bad advice out there as far as how to conduct yourself online and what a company or legal ramifications an individual could have against you. I mean, this is, as you say, not often cut and dry, but sometimes people are just not aware of what they could be doing that could really hurt their reputation.
Yeah, I think on that, using your own equipment for professional activities point, it's something that people don't pay a lot of attention to, but it really, really makes sense if, you have work issued equipment, that's what you do your work on, and that you keep your personal stuff separate as much as you can. I mean, it just makes it a lot cleaner. And I know as a practical matter, not too many people do that. So, it's definitely something to think about. And again, I'm not an employment lawyer, but these kinds of issues come up all the time, given that we think about law and technology a lot in my practice and on our show. So, I think that what I often tell people is you really need to not let things come up and bite you. Think about them in advance and talk with your coworkers and superiors about issues that you're wondering about. Don't just let it fester. Don't wonder about it. Get some clarity and get that clarity in writing, and then everybody's on the same page.
Really helpful advice, Denise. I'm sure there are lots more questions, but I know you have to go. And Sarah, I'm just thinking that we should probably see if Denise can come back, every couple of months, because it seems as though there are always new issues that are coming up in the social and legal space. And we could definitely use some help in this area because we constantly get questions.
Absolutely, Denise. If you are willing, we will have you back anytime, because it's great to have not only another social media gal who knows and loves the space, but one who also has a really good handle on the legal aspect of it. So thanks again for being here.
I'd be honored anytime. Just let me know.
Okay. Well, Denise, go enjoy your weekend. But before you do, just remind everybody you do host This Week in Law here on the TWiT Network, and let everybody listening and watching the show know where to find what you're up to online.
Sure. Well, it's super easy. If you're watching the social hour, just start about an hour and a half or 2 hours earlier. That's when we start recording at 11 PT, 1800 UTC on Fridays. And that's when we do the show. And then you can just continue on in your wonderful TWiT Friday afternoon and take in the social hour next. Of course, you could start at 10 with TNT and just make it a whole TWiT day.
Right, just a trifecta of greatness for sure.
Yes.
Not that I have any personal investment in TNT in the mornings or anything, but those guys do a good job.
They do. They're awesome.
All right, Denise, thanks so much. And we'll have you back on the social hour again soon. Have a great one.
All right, you too.
Quick reminder, Denise is pretty good at setting this up, but we do record the social hour live on Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. There are rumors around TWiT that we might end up changing our live schedule one of these days, but don't worry about it, because the nice thing is if you can watch us live, that's awesome. We love getting the live questions in. Everybody in chat, you guys are the best. But if you don't watch us live, that's okay, because all of our content on TWiT is on demand. The website for the social hour is twit.tv/TSH. That's where you can find all of our show archives. If you'd like to subscribe to the show and have it delivered to you automatically each week, you can do that. We've got audio and video feeds in a variety of different formats to make it as easy as possible for you to enjoy the show. And of course, if you have questions and comments, Amber and I are all over the social space. But if you prefer email, you can, of course, email us at thesocialhour@twit.tv. All right, Amber, we've got quite a bit of news and spotlights and tips for everybody. But before we get into that, we should probably take a moment to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. We love Squarespace. We talk about Squarespace all the time. What's nice about it is that it's a way to create a high-quality website or blog, but it's an all-in-one platform, too. It's not just about putting your content out there. It's about hosting. It's about managing. It's about back-end support. It's kind of all of that stuff. In fact, some of the reasons that you might like Squarespace is that they've got beautiful designs. That's the number one thing. You want your website to be something that somebody goes to and says, oh, wow, this looks really good. This person must really know how to code. This person must really have a lot of design skills. You don't have to have any of that stuff. Squarespace has won design awards for their templates that they give to you when you have a Squarespace account. So this is just something you can take and run with it, or you can customize it if you want to take it in a different direction. But it's a really, really good jumping off point. And in fact, they have 20 new beautiful, beautiful templates that they've added recently. So if it's been a while since you've just kind of perused what Squarespace has to offer, definitely go back and give it another look, because the templates are great. They're constantly amazing me. Mobile ready is very important. Everybody's on the go these days. We don't always look at our favorite websites at home, at our desktop. I mean, that's something I almost never do. Mobile ready designs, it's very, very important. Your content will look great any way anyone's accessing your device. The code is good as well. Squarespace, the team, they're proud of their code. Back-end stuff is just as important as how the front end works. If you've got a site and you're really interested in, well, who visited and where'd they come from and what was the referring link, and let's look at some statistics and nice graphical form, all of that stuff is at your fingertips, and it's really easy to keep track of who likes your content and what's working with your audience. Search engine optimize as well. It's not hard to find your content on the search, and of course, hosting is included. You don't have to worry about where you got to host the Squarespace site that you signed up for. That's all one thing. So it makes it as easy as possible for you to have a single place where your content lives and that you can be proud of. If you want to start a trial, you can do so today. No credit card is required. Just start building that website. And when you decide to sign up, make sure to use the offer code SocialHour9. It's the 9th month of the year. So it's just Social Hour and then the number 9, and you'll get 20% off, just like that. It helps, you show your support for the Social Hour, but we want you to support us and also get a little bit of a deal too. 20% off new accounts using the offer code SocialHour9. That's up to you. Just take it for a spin first. You don't have to make any decisions right now. Just see if you like it. If you do, and I think you will, then you go ahead and get a little discount there. 20% off. Squarespace, everything you need to create an exceptional website and host it too. And thanks to the team over at Squarespace for sponsoring us, as always. Amber,
Sarah,
I know that American football, the NFL, National Football League, isn't for everybody, but it certainly is it's a big deal. And it seems like Twitter, of all the companies, has really invested itself in being a close partner to big television franchises, with the NFL deal being just the latest.
Yeah, I've always found it very interesting with Twitter how they are closely aligning themselves with different brands, especially in the broadcast television space, because it seems as though the Twitter audience, or the television audience, is one that Twitter really wants to be able to go after. So this is no exception. And I would also say that I think in the sports arena, I'm talking about lots of different leagues, I feel as though the NFL and other sporting groups do a great job, I think, of using social media and really are at the forefront of this. So not a big surprise here, I think, to see Twitter align themselves with the NFL in a more official way.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not new for Twitter. You might say, haven't they done something with the sports before? Yeah, they have a deal with Major League Baseball and 2 different networks, Viacom and Fox, that started earlier this year. CBS and Twitter have a deal as well, and really, this is an ad type of a deal. So TV programmers can have short video clips that will appear on Twitter with a little short video ad that's right before that. So if you are, for example, searching for something football related, maybe you're searching for keywords or particular accounts or this or that, you will start seeing clips from maybe a really great play that everybody seems to be talking about on Twitter that the NFL wants to capitalize on. And then, of course, there's an ad component as well. So I think it makes perfect sense. And we're certainly in an age now where you could never claim that Twitter was just text-based anymore. I mean, it's absolutely a multimedia experience, and more so all the time. So we're going to see more partnerships like this. And I think sports, especially because for the most part, people watch sports live, and Twitter thrives on live events because there's a momentum that happens. It just makes perfect sense for basically the sports franchises that are successful on Twitter and ending up having monetary deals with the company.
Yeah, it definitely does. And here's something, though, Sarah, that doesn't make sense. And I know you put this in the rundown. I think I stumbled across this as well. This is so disturbing. This is maybe the bad side of Twitter, or the bad side of people, I should say. Comedian punches Newsweek Daily Beast correspondent over a tweet. Now, this is the type of story, Sarah, that makes me cringe. It's like when you hear of people being beat up because perhaps someone wants their new iPhone, and it just is the ugly side of technology. And this really is no exception. So this story has been making the rounds on social media sites, talking about what happened after an improv night. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with these 2 different characters. I don't really know them that well. So maybe you could just follow up on the story story a little bit.
Yeah, so there was a comedian who was doing a stand-up show, comedy stand-up, at an improv night, and his name is Dan Nanan. And apparently a news correspondent who works at Newsweek Daily Beast named Josh Rogan wasn't heckling the guy in person, which we've all probably heard of stories where, a comedian doesn't like what audience member is saying and they kind of get into it, war of the words or whatever. But in this case, the reporter said something on Twitter, and the comedian was monitoring stuff that was being said about him, as people do, and probably, just didn't like, there was some criticism about his style of humor and what he was saying. But he ended up reportedly physically assaulting this reporter because he figured out who it was that was sending the tweets and that the person was physically there and was arrested. Now, this is, of course, a case of, hey, physical violence is just wrong. And that's always going to be unacceptable. But the fact that somebody is saying something on Twitter, which is admittedly a pretty passive aggressive way to give somebody feedback, ending up being something that put you in physical danger because the person figured out that you were there.
Yeah, it's just disturbing all around. And I think it really makes you realize how important it is. And not that this has any sort of relevancy in the legal space, but how important it is for everybody to kind of take a step back and pause before they put anything out on Twitter and just understand that it's just a platform. Sometimes people say things and it's very rash. And at the end of the day, it's just a few characters. But I don't think that our next story is going to help this story at all, Sarah, because it's almost equally as disturbing. I don't know. I always think of grown adults battling over things that happen on Twitter. And I wonder, and I mentioned this on the show before, how teenagers can expect to have any type of role models when we can't even keep it together as adults. And looks like Kanye West has been attacking Jimmy Kimmel on Twitter. And I don't know about you, Sarah, but when I read these tweets that Kanye West has sent out, it does almost seem like it's a Saturday Night Live skit. But this is real, right?
It almost does. You're right. And Brian, be careful when you scroll because some of it gets a little, he's angry at first. And then there's definitely some personal insults that get thrown in that are probably not appropriate for all audiences. But in general, here is because I'm a pretty big Kanye West fan. I like his music. So I follow what he's doing. And he recently did, this is a short version of the story if I can make one. He recently did a big 4-part interview with BBC Radio 1. Kind of a fascinating interview just because he's a very passionate person. So said a lot of stuff, kind of unhinged. And Jimmy Kimmel made a skit that made fun of him and used basically children with choice sound bites from the interview to basically sort of say like, well, Kanye's a big baby type of thing. All right, well, this is all, fun and games, sure, but comedians making fun of people sometimes can seem mean-spirited. And Kanye just really went nuclear on Twitter. I mean, it's an all caps rant about Jimmy Kimmel and his family and just all sorts of crazy stuff, which of course gets everybody riled up on Twitter because it's like, oh boy, I've now gotten to the point where I will get text messages or IMs from friends who will be like, you got to go over to Twitter right now. This thing is blowing up because nobody's really sure when somebody kind of goes on a crazy rant and you don't know what they'll say next. No one's really sure how long those tweets will live because often they get pulled down really quickly when maybe something was said that is immediately regretted. And it's like watching a schoolyard fight. And everyone's like, you got to go into they're going to fight. They're going to fight. You got to get in there. And I feel dirty, really. But it's out there in front of all of us.
Yeah, I just think it's so pathetic. I mean, there are issues, I think, with, online internet trolls. There are issues with people being bullied, especially kids. There are kids who are committing suicide because they're being bullied and harassed by people. I mean, if you are a famous celebrity, the least you can do is kind of stand up and say that you're going to rise above situations like this and be a role model for younger people. And if you don't do that, then I don't see how it's really any different than bullying that happens out there. And I'm not saying, this is a situation, obviously, where, something happens, Kanye is angry, but But at the end of the day, just reading through some of his tweets, it just gets very personal. He starts swearing. He's very angry. And it just, he needs to pull back. Whether you like Kanye or not, you can see in these tweets that he has kind of lost control, I think, in many ways. And I mean, it gets worse as you read on. He's talking about going to Jimmy Kimmel's family's wedding. Then he gets into how Sarah Silverman is funnier than Jimmy Kimmel. And
which is funny because you were just at her show.
I know. And I don't know if she is funnier than Jimmy Kimmel. But anyway, that's an aside. But I think it's just totally ridiculous. As you read through them, it just, again, I feel like I am watching a skit on Saturday Night Live that's being played out in real life on Twitter. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this one, but it's bizarre.
It's funny that you mentioned it. It almost seems like a Saturday Night Live skit. And I hadn't really thought about the idea that any of this could be an act, but we have a few people in chat, and I've actually just been looking at a couple keywords on Twitter just to see what other people are saying that agree that this seems like it's out of left field to the point where it's suspicious. Now, I don't know. I mean, earlier this week, I found out that Horse Ebooks, which is a Twitter spam bot account, was actually like an art project. I don't even have that in the rundown because I'm so mad about the whole thing. But it's like I can't believe in anything anymore. So I don't know. Maybe I should just automatically assume that if anything is dramatic enough on Twitter, especially when it involves two celebrities that are really well known and in the public eye, that I should be immediately suspicious.
Well, it's almost like if you remember just recently, Justin Bieber had tweeted a photo where he had the Batman script and people were saying, oh, is he going to be Robin in the next Batman movie? And Justin Bieber's always doing these ridiculous pranks and he's almost toying with his community on Twitter. And he has millions of them, so he obviously doesn't have to worry about a few million dropping off here or there. But I agree with you. We've almost entered into a day and age where people are manipulating others' sense of trust in terms of what they're saying and putting out there for marketing purposes, for promotion and exposure. And so you're left with this kind of empty feeling where you just don't even know what to believe. Is this part of a greater skit where all of a sudden, they're going to be doing an M&M's commercial together? I mean, not M&M, but M&M's, the product. You just don't know, right? And that's it feels a little like that. The authenticity's gone, I think. That's
Man, I just want to know when something's real and and not. And yes, I want everybody to get along a little bit more. But hey, I guess drama is the spice of life for some people. But something that isn't very dramatic and is just darn helpful is the fact that at least on the web and on Android, not iOS yet, so Amber, score one for you in the Android army, that Facebook will start letting you edit your posts after you've already posted them. This is something that has come back to bite me before, where I realize, oh crap, I totally misspelled something and it just makes me look foolish, or, oh, the link is wrong, or, whatever. And I absolutely love this because I sometimes don't want to start over because it makes it, there's like a twofold problem with that is when you delete something, then if anyone's already commented or liked it or somehow engaged with you, you lose all of that. But then it just kind of makes you look like sloppy too. So love this feature.
I love this too. And, I think we've talked before about Google Plus and how one of the positives about Google Plus has been the fact that you can edit your posts. And it's nice to see Facebook go that direction. And it's funny because I was just posting about going on the show and mentioning that Denise was joining us and I made a mistake. So I went back in and actually used this feature. So really, really useful, I think, for anyone out there for personal accounts, for anyone managing a page or managing a brand's page. So really happy to see them do this. And Sarah, I don't want to go back to Kanye. I want to leave it kind of behind us. However, I will say that Robert on Twitter just tweeted at us to say Kanye is super sensitive to media. After that TMZ LAX assault, I feel his concern, but he never handles the issues properly. I don't know what any of that means, but I'm just sharing it in case others do.
Oh, okay. I wish I did. I don't spend a lot of time on TMZ, although I like my celebrity drama. I don't know what he means either, but hopefully some of you do, and you can let us know. But yeah, I mean, back to the Facebook editing thing, there'll be people who say, Google Plus has been doing that for ages, and that's true. Mm-hmm. That's one of the great things about Google Plus. I'd love to be able to go and edit a tweet at some point, and I have to assume that eventually they'll let us, even if we can't have more than 140 characters in a tweet. I still kind of like, I have to chuckle when I watch something disappear in real time from my timeline because I realize somebody either went, oh, that wasn't what I meant to post, or, oh, I didn't say that right, or something like that. I've done it as well too. So give us editing privileges.
Yeah, I can't, probably once a week on Twitter, I wanted to go back and be able to change something that I tweeted out. Especially, I think, if you come from a world where it's important that you do spell things correctly and people are watching if you make sure that you put things out there that are grammatically correct. So I think it's one of those situations where I hate to have any type of spelling mistake in my tweets. It drives me absolutely crazy. So I would love an editing feature there. It seems like it would be a simple thing to do, I would think.
And then there's the other part of it where someone says, well, hold on a second. Let's say you're Kanye West and you tweet something and then you say, you know, that really went over the line. I'm going to go back and change it. So it doesn't look like I deleted anything. It's just different now. Obviously, somebody could take a screenshot of your original tweet and say, no, you edited that. But I think probably in general, it's a good idea. And this is something that Google Plus does really well. If you just have a little edited note, then at least there's an indication that at some point this changed from whatever it originally said. And that's just good practice, I think. You know, if somebody updates an article, there will be an update or a clarification or a correction. And I think that's, that's part of the deal as well.
It is. And, I would think, too, because I do this when I browse through Twitter, I sometimes go back into people's history of their tweets, especially if I just am starting to follow them or I want to get a sense of what they've tweeted over the past few days. And I can even imagine how I would want to be able to go back and edit something, not because I made a mistake, but when I post "We're live now" on the social hour, imagine if we could go back and edit that and kind of scratch that out and then just put the link after the show has been published. I mean, there's so many uses I can imagine with being able to actually edit what you put out there and change your timeline. I agree with you, though. There should be some record of it.
Agreed. We are in agreement. All right, let's move on to our social spotlight of the week. Amber, this is one of your picks, a tweet citation generator.
Okay, so this is fun for people who are writing academic papers. And I have never, ever thought about this before. But imagine you're writing a paper and you need to be able to put in a tweet that was sent out. Maybe it was a historical tweet from a president like President Barack Obama. You want to figure out a way that you are able to cite that tweet in your paper. Well, someone has launched a service called Tweet2Cite, and that's the number 2. And it's a free citation generator that converts tweets into properly formatted MLA and APA citations. Obviously, those are different writing guidelines that you may have to use in your papers that you're creating for school or wherever it might be. All you do is paste a link to the tweet into this generator. You click on go, and then all of a sudden you have the proper format to mention that tweet in an academic paper. And I think this is something students will, if they're not using it today, 10 years down the road, it will be really important.
I love this. I think it makes perfect sense. Twitter has done a really good job lately, particularly with understanding that there's such a knowledge base on Twitter. And yes, it's in a particular format. It's sometimes, the brevity is high and you can't always convey everything that you want to convey on Twitter, but it is a knowledge base. It's something that needs to be referenced, and something like an academic work is just one way that it is continuing to thrive in that way. I mean, people are going to be pointing to, hey, this was said on Twitter, or here was something that was shared on Twitter, and making references to that, as long as Twitter is around, and it's going to be around for a while. Earlier in the week, go ahead.
As more and more people are using it to make statements, right? I mean, you see politicians using it to make statements to defend themselves in situations, if they're arguing with the media or other politicians, are using it as a place to really create history in some ways.
Exactly. Earlier this week, there was another Twitter story, and it's not quite the same, but Twitter will now allow you to basically get alerts sent to you based on the sort of thing that you might be interested in. Like if it's a FEMA alert, this is sort of like what works with the with the National Weather Service. If there's a tornado, a warning issued, a bunch of people are going to get that on their phones, or like an Amber Alert type of a thing. At least in the U.S., I don't know if you guys have those up in Canada, Amber Mac, but yeah, through Twitter, you can sort of say, oh, these are other things that I want pushed to me because they're extremely important. So again, it's like there's great stuff coming out of Twitter all the time. And I think it makes a lot of sense for the company to make it as easy as possible for that to just be part of the conversation, no matter where you're referencing it.
Definitely. And we also have another Twitter headline. It seems like this is a Twitter heavy show. Sometimes we have Facebook heavy shows, but a lot about Twitter this week. And this one is all about hashtags. You probably saw the video that was going viral. I think I saw every second person I know on Facebook posted this, so you may be sick of it. However, it's cute. Justin Timberlake and Jimmy Fallon showing us how silly we sound when we mention hashtags while we're speaking. And we've even addressed this on the show, I think, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. This was a good one. Do you want to just play a tiny little clip from this, Brian, so everybody gets an idea of what we're talking about?
Hey, Justin, what's up?
Not much, Jimmy. Hashtag chilling. What's up with you?
Just been busy working. Hashtag rise and grind. Hashtag is it Friday yet?
Hey, check it out. I brought you some cookies. Hashtag homemade. Hashtag oatmeal raisin. Hashtag show me the cookie.
Sweet. Hashtag don't mind if I don't. Pretty good. Hashtag getting my cookie on. Hashtag I'm the real cookie monster. Hashtag no.
And so on. You get the
I did it all
joke.
for the cookie. Hashtag LOL.
So funny.
Amber, this was shared with me by somebody via email, of all places, a few days ago, and I watched the whole thing, and it's the sort of thing where you're kind of like, this video probably won't be that funny, but it really is. It's quite hysterical. We'll have a link to it in the show notes, and I try not to call anybody out on it because I know that it's sort of like calling somebody out on grammar. It's never really appreciated if you do it in a public way, but the hashtags, the point that Fallon is making is just like people just are using hashtags for the worst reasons. They don't make any sense. It doesn't help you find anything. It provides no context. It's like these weird sentences that people are making. It doesn't work. But it's kind of become its own weird thing where it doesn't work so badly that it's kind of funny on its own.
Yeah, and I feel as though those two could really do a skit about anything. It would be funny. I feel as though they always have their finger on the pulse as far as internet and social media trends. So it's a hilarious thing just to watch them interact together. But I have heard people use the hashtag thing in conversations before. Not as much, obviously, as this video, but I feel like things are going that way. Like people start to say things to me like LOL, in person. And it doesn't happen all the time, but I notice it more now than I think I've ever noticed it before. So I think we're heading that direction. And this is like a warning, Sarah, to pull back.
It is. Well, it's like if you've gotten to the point where late night skits are being made about the terrible ways that people are using hashtags, it might be time to retire that pound sign.
Yes.
Really use it when you need to. Why are you going to, or whatever. Who knows?
Yes.
Now, maybe it'll just, it'll get people riled up and they'll want to speak in entirely hashtags. It's probably a losing battle. I still have this desire that hashtags are really only used to help me filter through something later on.
Yeah, no, I know.
That's what they're for. That's what they're for. And I actually use them in that way a lot, when I'm doing research on news or topics or whatever. But
Sarah, it would be kind of cute, when you do the tease for the show, if you did it in just hashtags, like hashtag, I don't know, citation generator, hashtag. Sorry, this is just my idea for you off the top of the show. It would be funny.
I'm happy to do that. I think it would actually make my job easier because I don't even really have to make a lot of sense.
It would just be funny just to do like 3 or 4 or 5 things that we mentioned on this show, and then people will figure it out later on.
I love it. Great. Good time. See, we're actually talking about something that's going to happen in the past. This is awesome.
This is
it's
the
our little
power
Back to the
of
Future
podcasting
DeLorean on the social hour.
So powerful. It's amazing. Amazing.
All right. Well, speaking of the show, just a reminder, we love hearing from all of you. All your tweets, Facebook messages, anywhere that you're getting a hold of Amber and I and giving us feedback and ideas and sending us articles that you think maybe we haven't seen yet or we should highlight. All very appreciated. Keep them coming. You can write us at the social hour at twit.tv. If you want to leave us a nice little voicemail, you can do so by dialing 2626-SOCIAL, 2626 SOCIAL. You can record a video and send us the link to it uploaded somewhere. I don't even know if I'm going to tell you guys to keep sending us videos because it's been so long since anybody did. I don't know. Maybe you're all just a bunch of scaredy cat chickens. I don't know. But you can. We're still accepting them. All right, Amber. Well, we've got your rad or fad on deck. But first, let's take a little break and thank SAP for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. Social media solutions from SAP is it's your knight in shining armor. If you work in the enterprise and you use social media, SAP helps companies use social media to improve customer service and support. Those are big issues that you tackle, especially if you're at a bigger and bigger company, because people are commenting, people are praising or complaining about your brand and all sorts of brands in public. This is the place where you go on rants. Just earlier this week, I had my internet go down at home, and guess where I went? I went straight to Twitter to air my grievances with my cable ISP. But it can be on Facebook or in a blog or on a review site that maybe you wouldn't just come across normally. You have to stay on top of all that stuff. If you work in social media at a large enterprise, it's just challenging to stay on top of the conversation. Social Media Solutions from SAP has a listening component where you're gathering all sorts of information systematically. It's just coming in. It makes a lot of sense of who's talking about your product or your service and why. How do they feel about it? Is there an unhappy customer? You gotta make sure that they become a happy one, somebody who's ready to make a purchase with your product, but they might need a little nudge from you, a little bit more information. And then, of course, the engaging component, which is how you improve your customer service and support, because then you get back to everybody. If you've got a team, you can designate, okay, well, John over here is going to take care of these kinds of queries that are coming in over Twitter, or we have a bunch of people who are unhappy with this aspect of this new feature that we have in our service. All of your team can appropriately take the right steps to make sure that everybody who is interested in your brand is accurately helped, right? Activity on the social media stream can lead to direct customer engagement as long as you do the right stuff, because you end up driving sales. You answer people's questions, you keep them happy. You quickly solve customer problems so they don't have issues, and they tell a friend that you were a joy to work with. And of course, by rapidly responding to customer feedback, you just answer questions and everybody's happier. Social Media Solutions from SAP gives you more than marketing by improving the customer service and support experience. And remember, if somebody posts a negative review, you or somebody on your team, an agent, can just rapidly remedy that problem. And that is often the most important factor in this, because it's all real time, it's coming in quick, and you don't want to sit on that sort of thing overnight. It could make all the difference. Go to sap.com/twit and take a guided tour to see for yourself how Social Media Solutions from SAP works and can work for your company as well. That's sap.com/twit. All right, Amber, what do we have for our rad or fad this week?
Okay, so this is more of a trend than a product necessarily. It's the wearable tech trend. However, I've not seen it go this far. This is an artist, a designer who has taken items like high heels and actually inserted phones within the heels, within handbags. So they're almost sewn and built in. Obviously, imagining that in the future, perhaps one day that you would have a pair of shoes that had your phone built right into them. Now, they do call some of these things, like using vintage footwear and incorporating the phone into them, they call it walkie-talkies. Get it, Sarah? And the same thing with gloves, where they call it talk to the hand. So it's more of a cute art exhibit in many ways. But I've been hearing so much about wearable tech these days. And I'm curious, Sarah, in terms of your opinion, is this a fad or is this actually going to happen? Is it rad?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, everybody, although it seems to have calmed down a little bit over the last month or so, but I feel like I spent most of the year trying to figure out when all those crazy smartwatches were happening. You know, all the companies, we've seen some of them. You know, Samsung has a new model out, but it was all about like, oh, wearable tech is going to be on your wrist. That's where it's happening. Mm-hmm. And then I think, you know, there are people who say, well, I don't want to wear a watch, or these gadgets aren't really all that great in general, or it's just one more thing that I don't already wear that I'm not too crazy about. So in terms of like it being in something like a shoe, well, I guess if I was moving it around between shoes, that might be an issue. But if it was something that was embedded in something that I'm just always going to wear, then I don't hate that idea. Or bags or gloves, because particularly gloves would be interesting because, you know, it would be moving very specifically based on how you're moving. So maybe the technology could start getting smart about, I don't know, your walking habits or whatever, you know, as you're using it to communicate with somebody. But boy, for the audio listeners, you don't see this picture of a woman looking extremely silly, looking like she's pantomiming a phone, but apparently she's got a phone inside those gloves.
Yeah, I think the glove thing, I hate to say it, but the glove thing makes sense to me. I'm not such a big fan of the idea of the shoes incorporating any type of mobile technology in it, but the gloves kind of do make sense, particularly if you live in a place that has quite a few months of cooler weather. Then I could see wanting that, because there is nothing worse, Sarah, and I'm sure you've experienced this, than taking out your smartphone in very frigid weather when you don't have gloves on and you're trying to type away on it. So if it was built in and you had to answer, it would be kind of neat, although the picture is really silly and it's worth watching the video version just to check it out. But I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. I sort of think it's kind of a fad right now.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this wearable tech will end up just not, you know, it's all possible. And some of it is going to end up being, you know, the fitness gadgets really, even though I can't seem to keep anything, I keep losing them or sending them through the washer, or I really like the idea. I think it makes a lot of sense, but I'm not to the point now where having a phone somehow embedded in a piece of clothing would be more helpful than, you know, having
an actual phone.
Yeah. Well, and then you've got the question of, if you're wearing something, how easy is it for you to glance down if there even is some sort of a screen that you look at? Then it turns into like, ooh, that's kind of cool to have a phone that you don't actually have to take out of anything. It just sort of exists. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't really solve the problem of all the other things that people are doing with their mobile computing habits.
Yeah, I think to your point, it doesn't feel to me like smartphones are broken, you know, and I feel as though inventions like this make sense when the old way of doing things is broken. But I think smartphones kind of make sense. They kind of work. Now, do I think something like the mobile wallet makes sense as a trend? Of course, because I think carrying around credit cards and cash seems totally ridiculous. And the idea that you could have everything built in the phone makes perfect sense. But I think the phone as a device and the fact that you can do so much on it, I don't feel the need for having everything built into my clothing. It seems like more of a pain. It's already an issue to figure out how you're going to be able to consistently charge your phone. What if it's actually built into gloves and things that you may want to wash? I mean, it seems silly. And I think what's happened, Sarah, and I was talking to someone who works in the investment field recently, and he was talking about wearable technology. And I feel like people, they just get caught up in that term a lot. You know, it's such a sexy term, wearable tech. So all of a sudden it feels like, oh, we need to invest in this, and it makes sense. But when you talk to people like us who are real early adopters and users of technology, it's ridiculous when it gets to this point of us actually being consumers of this. So I don't know. I'm on the fence, but with the fashion side of wearable tech, I think it's just a little silly maybe.
I mean, even I feel like and I know that there are, you know, the Scotty vests, and there's certain products that are actually a hit with people, but even really the concept of, hey, you're going to buy this new jacket because it's got this awesome pouch for your mobile phone, or this, I remember for a while it was like all the purses had this one little pocket that was just perfect for everybody's tiny little Nokia phones that we were all carrying around at the time. And it's like, well, my iPhone wouldn't even fit in that purse now. So a lot of this stuff just kind of turns into, it's a solution that's in such a it's in such a tiny little window of time as it applies to tech, because all this stuff evolves so quickly that I think it's hard to say anything's a wearable solution because the technology itself is changing. And if you're embedding that into clothing, it's like they're evolving at such a wildly different pace. I mean, clothing changes more like decade to decade, I guess. You know, tech changes month to month.
It does. I mean, I'm even finding that now with phones. I can't tell you how many smartphones I review on a regular basis. And every week I see a new phone. I mean, just last week I saw a new phone from Sony and the camera on it is gorgeous. And so all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you know, instead of using the Samsung Galaxy S4, I think I'm going to switch to the Sony phone. But it feels like every couple of months even, there is that desire to kind of switch things up because the trends are just changing and happening so quickly. So I think with wearable tech, it's one of those things that I think it's going to be really slow for this to come into its own and for consumers to just really want something like this. Even the smartwatches, I'm not sold on them at all.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of all of this stuff, but I can't say I'm too optimistic that we've seen or even heard of anything that's like the solution that we're all looking for.
Exactly. Yep, I'm with you on that one.
Two fads, you know, sometimes it just can't be rad. That's the beauty of the show. Amber will bring something to the table and we kind of talk it through with all of you and we decide if we're thinking it's awesome or not. So today was a fad, but I think we chose wisely.
Sarah, it's not as cool as I don't know why I'm always showing you glasses that I have because week after week they seem to change. But I'm drinking out of a Luke Skywalker glass right now. So
well, that's good. I've got a little I don't quite know what you'd call this. It's like a type of Japanese sort of artwork mug. Thank you. I mean, I can't believe it's after 2 p.m. Pacific time and I'm drinking coffee. I don't know who I think I am, but it's not going to go well.
You'll be on Twitter later, Sarah.
Yeah. All right, well, Amber, we've come to the end of another fun-filled hour. Thanks to everybody for joining us live and everybody who's watching and listening to us on your own time, perhaps over the weekend, or maybe even, I don't know, you could be listening or watching whenever you want. It could be like a year from now. Happy 2014, you. Amber, anything new and fun and exciting coming up in your world until we meet again?
Let me think. Not too exciting. I guess if you live in Canada, the TV show I do, App Central, our new season starts airing this weekend. So Saturday night at 5:30 on CTV, you can watch that all across the country. So we have a bunch of new shows that are coming out starting tomorrow that will air all the way through till the end of December. So just finished taping a bunch of stuff. So that's kind of what's next for me. I get to sit back and not have to tape for a while.
Well, that's very exciting.
It is.
Congratulations on getting a little break, I guess.
Yes. So that's season 4 of the show, which in the TV world, Sarah, as you know, that's a fairly good run so far.
Sure is.
Can't complain.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. It's funny. Sometimes I think if we could think in terms of seasons for Twitch shows, I don't know what season we're on. I don't know. We just keep on chugging.
Yeah.
Our seasons never stop.
Yes. I guess if you did a regular 26 episode season, then we are well into our 5th season. If that makes sense.
Correct. Yeah. Because it's about 2 seasons a year.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we are. So how about that?
On our way.
How's that for longevity, everybody?
Take that. Yeah.
All right. Well, Amber and I will be back same time next week following This Week in Law with Denise Howell. Thanks to Denise for being on the show earlier. It was really fun to get her perspective on a lot of questions that, seem really obvious, but don't have obvious answers. And remember that if you want to watch us live, we record the show on Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Our website is twit.tv/TSH. You can find our show in a variety of your favorite podcast clients, certainly on iTunes. Tell a friend if you like what you see in here and think that they will too. Until next week, I will remain Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur. We'll see you soon.